You know how they always say fly fishermen are always super bougie? That stereotype does exist, and it is true to some extent, but I want to just clarify one thing for you. Although I am fly fishing this morning, look at what I'm wearing. Those shorts are what I slept in last night. This shirt is what I'm going to be painting in later today. It's got paint stains all over it and cost me about $7 from an Orvis outlet in Delaware. So you don't have to be bougie to use one of these. That's what I'm throwing this morning, just a little boogle bug, little white boogle bug on my 5-weight fly rod. Very early. It's very early in the morning. It's about 7 o'clock. So I'm going for that top water bite. Making an absolute racket though, trying to make my way through the water. But yeah, going for that top water bite, one of the spots a little bit further down the creek. Now there's plenty of bluegill in here from my past trips. I've never seen a bass, but there's absolutely no reason why they can't be in here. I mean, this is perfect for, not for, obviously, not if I'm going for my personal best or anything, but you know, little creek sized largemouth, this should be fine. Yes, a bit deeper around this bend. If you've seen on my previous videos, the spot I typically go to is a good 5 or 6 feet deep. And it's been raining, I don't know if you can tell, but it's been raining and the water's a little high. So it should be a good day. You know, I'm making that joke about fly fishermen being super bougie. Like I said, the stereotype is true. Unfortunately, fly fishermen can be major gearheads, which I've never been. I've always been more of a budget angler, more my style. I don't know, there's just something about, you know, you're out here to try and be connected to nature, of course, right? You're trying to maybe re-bridge, reconnect your experience, your human experience with that of nature. And it just seems a bit odd, really, to come out here and be decked out in $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 worth of stuff, you know, when, let's be honest, most of it isn't necessary. So like I say, I got a pair of hiking shoes, a pair of shorts that I was wearing last night, and a $7 t-shirt. And I'm here with my very trusty Leland starter trout, budget rod and reel. So I'm actually at one of my spots, just around this corner. You can kind of see that there's a lot of laydowns, a lot of trees. I don't know, just as a caveat, did anyone else kind of get really confused when they started fishing and everyone you watched on YouTube called a tree a laydown? I did. It took me months to figure out what the fuck they were talking about. I am a bit stupid. So that probably played a part. There you go. Probably played a part. Make sure I got nothing in my pockets as I'm about to, whoa, go a little bit deeper. So this is a nice little pool back here. I'll tell you lads, it is amazing what the water can craft and engineer, just given enough time. I don't know if you remember a previous video, and I don't know if I got the angle to show you the difference, but all this gravel, all this sand, all these pebbles wasn't here 6 months ago. Certainly not accumulated like this. I mean, this has now changed the course of the creek. Last time I came here, the water was flowing this way directly into this pool. That's now almost been choked off. I think there's a bit of a trickle back there, but as you can see, it's shifted. The current is now flowing this way, or now flowing that way, and we've had a huge pile up of sand, of gravel. So with these little bugs, you're just kind of stripping them. It's a top water frog, essentially. So not really too much of a difference in terms of technique versus this in a bait caster or a spinning rod. I've only ever really caught bluegill back here, but like I say, I mean, there's really no reason why there can't be a little bass back there. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to just pitch it. I tell you, every time I come fly fishing after a huge like absence on the water, I'm always terrible. I always have to kind of relearn how to cast. Do not look at me and think, God, that's how you do it. I'd actually be shocked if that's what you thought. Oh, that might have actually been a bite. Right as I was just pulling the line back in to recast it out. Yep, that was a bite. And I got a fish straight away. How cool is that? I didn't even, oh, it was a bluegill. I need a net for this guy. He's a little bit bigger than the rest. Right, gotcha. Gotcha, you little sucker. Whoa, that's a nice bluegill. That was a nice one. I mean, it had to be, right? Because he went for this, which is not small. That's a nice one. I didn't even strip that. He just took it straight away. As soon as it hit the water, he took it. Hey, buddy. Let's make sure you don't get you wrapped in the line. There you go. There he goes. For him, that's the most confusing morning he's had in a long time. Like I say, having to relearn the trade. And despite that, I caught a fairly nice bluegill. That might actually be one of the bigger ones out of here, which, might be a bit depressing to some of you, but hey, I haven't been fishing in 6 months. I haven't seen a fish, let alone caught one. I don't even have to strip it. They're just gonna come take it, which makes me think it kind of takes the fun out of it. If they're not really gonna take the frog when it's moving, they're just gonna take it when it's idle. I may as well just have a dry fly on. I'll be honest, I come out here, and this is kind of a typical day. I'll come out here, it's been, 6 months since I caught a fish. It's been 6 months since I used a fly rod. And so you get out here and you're just like, God, my cast does not look good. So even when you catch a fish, you're kind of a little bit disappointed because you're like, God, my cast was really bad. So you sort of have to remind yourself, it's fishing, it's not casting. It's fly fishing. So dry flies have always worked here. I mean, this creek is loaded with bluegill. Absolutely loaded. And they love dry flies, so I'm not surprised that if I just throw that frog and just leave it, and leave it, and leave it, I'll have a winner. Well, that's a nice one. Oh, trying to get my line. Where's my line? Oh, he's got my bloody line wrapped around me. There you go. Well, I can report that they've grown, clearly. That one's, again, I need another decent sized one. Another decent sized one. For this creek. Look, I'm not saying it's, I'm not saying they're massive. It's the biggest bluegill I've seen in my life. I'm not saying that. Just saying they're pretty big for this creek. For the most part, when I come here, I just stick a dry fly on and I just use a dry fly for a couple hours because it's just fun. It's just fun catching them. I don't need to match the hatch with a bluegill. I can just stick literally any dry fly I have and they'll take it. And so I didn't honestly think I'd catch one on this, because I thought, like, it's a popper, right? It's a topwater frog, it's a topwater popper. I just thought, if there's bass in here, I'll try it, because it's the biggest. It's honestly, on the 5-weight, it's the biggest thing I have. I've got a woolly bugger. I've got 2 woolly buggers, but I don't know the size of them, but I bought them for my 8-weight. And I think the last time I threw them out on this, they were way, way, way too heavy. So the bug is the only thing I have that can realistically catch a bass. I mean, a dry fly's probably just not gonna work. This bug is actually really nice. It seems to, he's been caught before, I think. I think he's probably been caught before with that little hole, that piercing. Of course, that probably was my hook. So I'm probably dead wrong about that. Dead wrong about a lot of things, mate. Dead wrong. So yeah, I didn't think they would go for it. But, like, clearly, if I just treat it like a dry fly and I let it sit there, you know, they're gonna just come and grab it. I always, you know, every time I come here, I sort of want to go off and explore, but kind of over there, where you see that big laydown to my left, it's really deep. It's, I mean, I'd be up to my shoulders. If I went over there to my left, I'd be up to my shoulders. And so, I mean, I could do that, but I'm also wearing a GoPro. Okay, now, I'm like a geriatric, fucking trying to get this fucking fly out there. There we go. That'll work. That'll work. There you go. They feel really, really quite big when they're on the line, and then you bill them in, and you're like, oh, I've got a 5-weight. That's why they feel big. That's why they feel big. Because I have the tiniest rod in existence. Oh, I got him right in his... Oh, shit, I got him right in his eye. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, buddy. Let's try and make this as painless as possible, but this is going to hurt. There we go. It was like not in his eye, but like right, you know, like your corner of your eye. And like right there. Jesus Christ, they're really not paying attention. I've got the rod literally between my legs. I can't help but catch fish. Beautiful fish, you know. I know people in this country who grew up here don't think anything of them, but it's a marvellous specimen. Alright, we're going to try this little back corner here. I don't know about you, it looks promising. Plenty of lay down. What do you think? Bass? Back there? Let's find out. For those of you who might be interested in fly fishing, and you're, you know, curious about the sort of difficulty of it, it is difficult. I can't underscore that enough. Like, it's not going to be as easy as picking up a spinning rod and a bait caster. I mean, I am not very good at fly fishing. I'm not very good at the casting. I've been, you know, doing this on and off for a while. I mean, for a couple of years, really. And I always think my casting is kind of pretty shambolic. I mean, do I catch bluegill? Sure. Would I catch trout? I don't know. You're not going to be able to watch a YouTube video and then just immediately be able to cast a fly rod perfectly. You're going to have to get one in your hands and you're going to have to practice. And that's frustrating because you'll cast and it won't look good. Like it won't. I mean, sure, there's probably a handful of people who just pick it up and it's a natural thing, and like all things in life, right? There's some people who just get it straight away. But I think the average person struggles. Because like you know, after a while, like 1 out of 5 casts might start to look right, might start to look nice. And that 1 in 5 ratio will be enough, in the beginning at least, to keep you entertained. Because it's fun. But it just takes time. You're not going to pick it up straight away, probably. It's going to take weeks, months, maybe. For it. Oh, I had a taker right as I was reeling my line in too. Wasn't even trying to catch him. It's one of those things. I mean, there's plenty of intricacies to it, but once you get that casting down, once you're like really getting that line going back and forth, and it's nice and straight, and it doesn't feel like a whip hitting the water and making a bunch of noise and a big old racket. It really is enjoyable. And after that, like, you know, you're good. You're kind of set. I mean, you can get into all the sort of like matching the hatch thing and nymphing and all that good stuff. You don't have to. I like fishing to be fun. I like going to my tackle box and my fly rod, and I just grab the nearest thing that I like, thing that I enjoy. Not really bothered too much if it's like the optimal thing to use. I'll tell you one of the things I love about fly fishing. I love the minimalist nature of it. But that is it. That is it. That is all I carry when I go fly fishing, right? I carry very little stuff. I got a rod, I got a reel, and I got a chest pack. And that's it. And for context, that's the size of my hand. That chest pack is tiny. Now, what do I carry inside the chest pack, you're wondering? Well, I've got some nippers, some floatant, then in the main compartment, a phone, a fly box, a pair of needle nose pliers. Of course, my tippet, which is on this sort of tippet holder down here. But, you know, aside from the keys and the phone, that's it. That is all I bring when I go fly fishing. There's no need to carry a giant tackle box. There's no need for it. Again, this is all very minimalist. Fly fishing, whilst it does lend itself to, you know, people who have obsessions about gear, and it does create gearheads like a lot of other hobbies do, fly fishing at its core, I think, is a very minimalist hobby. This is perfect. This is more like it. Wow, awesome. That's a bass. Yes. I knew they'd be in here. There's one chasing it too. Oh, that's a nice one. This is where I really do need a net though. There we go. I knew they'd be in here. I knew they'd be in here. That's a really nice one. Barely hooked him. See if I can lip him. He's really, really small. Look at that, top water popper. fly rod, 5-weight. Beautiful. That's made me really happy, that. Because I was going to go home. I was actually about to go home. I was thinking, they're not here today. Whoa! Don't know if you saw that. I saw him come up right underneath it. It was really fun. So what's nice about bass, they don't play games. Yeah, he's gonna get it. He's gonna get it. Ooh. Yep. Oh. Yeah, that's the thing about trout fishing. They're spooked by shadows, they're spooked by noise. There's so many variables. It's why, honestly, as a fly fisherman for trout, you really do have to get everything right. You have to, at the very least, you have to take in a lot of different variables into consideration. Whereas with bass, they're just a bit easier to catch. You know, bluegill, same way. So what I would say to a beginner, you know, who's just getting into fly fishing or thinking about it, you know, because earlier we were talking about the difficulty of casting, which obviously is a bit of a roadblock for a lot of people because they get intimidated, and then that prevents them from taking it up. And for the most part, that was my story too. But what makes it a little bit easier is if you kind of gravitate towards bass and maybe not dive straight into trout, because trout obviously are very finicky, very difficult to catch. They, you know, very easily spooked, all that kind of good stuff. Lost my line here. There we go. So I will get this guy in, and he is foul hooked. Sorry, buddy. Oh, sorry, bud. Let's get that out of your gill. There you go. And get the line out of you too. You know, they are very difficult to catch. You do have to take a lot of things into consideration. The hatch, time of day, the weather, whether it's overcast, whether it's rained, all this kind of stuff. Whereas with bass, I mean, you know, yes, time of day, yes, feeding patterns, yes, cover, yes, all that matters, but no one with a straight face is going to argue that bass are more difficult to catch than trout. No one. So as a beginner, you know, why don't you go get a fly rod? Why don't you get a 5-weight or a 6-weight? Find your nearest creek and go after bass. Go after bluegill. The argument being, they're just a little bit easier to catch. It might make your day a little bit more enjoyable, because the problem, of course, is if you're going after trout, you're trying to catch a trout, you're still learning how to cast. Your casting isn't very good. It does beg the question whether or not maybe you're going to catch a trout, maybe you're not. So focus on bass, focus on bluegill. You'll find them everywhere, you know. You know, down here in Virginia, if you want to go after native trout, I mean, you have to travel a couple of hours. I mean, I live in northern Virginia, so that's an inconvenience, you know. Pretty much every body of water, every watershed has bass or bluegill, and you typically don't have to travel that far to find them. So my advice is get something like this. This is a Leland. It's a 5-weight. It's an 8-foot rod. It's an 8-foot 5-weight rod. It's a little bit shorter, so it's really nice for these little back creeks, you know, where a 9-foot might be a little bit too long, where, you know, kind of look at the vegetation. I've got, you know, not on a wide open river with nothing around me. I've got a little bit of cover and I've got a little bit of obstruction. So an 8-foot 5-weight is kind of nice for these conditions. So yeah, if you're thinking about getting into fly fishing, look into bass, look into bluegill, and maybe get yourself something like this. just as a kind of entry-level first step into the sport. So beautiful here. I mean, just look at it. There's no one around. The only noise you can hear is the insects, the sound of my own voice, and the water running behind me. And that's it. And you know, you might think that I'm, you know, in the middle of nowhere, that I'm 2 or 3 hours away from my home in some national park. But I'm not. I'm approximately a 10-minute drive from my home. 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, I can achieve a level of solitude, peace, that seems, you know, in this industrialized, urbanized world, seems very difficult to achieve, but in reality, it's not. It's here. It's all around you. You just have to open your eyes and go out there and find it. And that can be a good way to end the video.